the bottom line is this. Going into 2021, companies were once again recruiting new leaders and also having to reimagine the way they were going to bring in those leaders. So the pandemic did and continues to transform the process of recruiting not just CEOs, but other top leaders or executives as well. What it's translated to, though, is a faster process in some instances because of virtual interviews. You're not having to wait to fly people in or schedule people in face-to-face meetings. And most interviewers can find an hour or two to carve out of their schedule for an interview. I'm not talking about the effectiveness of the interview, I'm just talking about the interview. The other thing is some recruiters have used this process, this different process, I'll say, to broaden the applicant pool, which means from a candidate's point of view, it means talking to more people within a company. It also means that there's more competition because suddenly it's less expensive to screen and interview candidates than it used to be. So there's not that forced decision of, I'm only going to pay the expenses to bring in the 6 top candidates or whatever it is. I can go ahead and put 10 forward if I think that's relevant. So that's complicated things for candidates from a competitive nature. Also, companies are giving priority to different values in their new leaders. The world has changed, how work gets done has changed, and therefore the value that they place upon their new leaders, recruiters and directors say they're often looking for something different than they typically would. So the pandemic has created disruption from technology to culture and a greater emphasis on diversity, which we'll also touch upon. Next, please. So what are some of those trends? And these are the ones that we'll go into a little bit more in detail. So there's turnover that hasn't probably happened as quickly as they thought originally. We talked about hiring getting faster, democratizing the process, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also organizations asking different questions. Next, please. So this is one of the several findings within the report. Going into 2021, one thing they saw in the US and in Europe and in Asia was not a lot of turnover at the executive ranks. So individuals were holding on to particular candidates. But during 2020, it plunged. They were less willing to let go of particular candidates, holding the status quo to see what would happen within the business. What was anticipated, however, is that in 2022, we would see turnover, particularly at the CEO level, rise again, as much as 30%. And the question becomes, has that really happened? It started out that way with the anticipation of the pandemic probably going in a different direction than what's really happening right now. And so it's unpredictable. And even though this word is overused and I cannot get it out of my head, I wish I could, we are in fact living in unprecedented times, even when it comes to job search and finding a next opportunity.